Coming to you from the city of the weird. Exploring topics from the esoteric and unexplored to dimensions unknown. Shining a light of truth on the darkest corners of our reality. Welcome to the Curious Realm. Well, hello, everybody. Hope everybody is having a good autumn evening. It is gorgeous right now here in the Texas Hill Country. Chris Jordan here, everybody, coming to you live from North Austin, Cedar Park area. Man, it has been an incredible week. It's been awesome. Thank you for everybody, as always, for tuning in as you do every week. Thank you for all the continued support over well more than 100 episodes. I had somebody ask me the other day, 100 episodes, man. And I had to explain to them that this show started as a different incarnation, and at episode 350, we transmogrified ourselves into Curious Realm and have since gone to bigger, better places, gone to conventions, all sorts of great stuff, met all sorts of awesome people. Here in just a minute, we'll be having a conversation with one of those awesome people that we have met at conventions over the last couple of years, Earl Grey Anderson, who is the California State Director for MUFON. We'll be talking about the coming disclosure with our government. What does disclosure actually mean? I think that much like UFO, UAP, or even paranormal, the word disclosure, I think, gets more obfuscated daily within our communities. So really straightening that out and figuring out, like, what do we expect with the coming disclosure? And he is actually a part of the brand new Hollywood Disclosure Alliance, along with our friend and guest, Stephen Bassett and Dan Harari and quite a few other folks. So we'll be talking about that, what it means to be getting Hollywood involved and backing this effort, which is huge and amazing. Before we do that, a couple of things. First off, once again, thank y'all, everybody, for tuning in for way more than 100 episodes. I know people that have been tuning in to Dudes and Beer since episode 3, 4, As of last week, you could listen to Curious Realm for 11 and a half days straight. If you put on our content and just hit play and let it keep going, you could listen for 11 and a half total days without hearing the same content. The one point of pride that I have is that never, even in the 350 episodes of Dudes and Beer, never in the 100 episodes of Curious Realm, have I ever repeated content. I've never taken a Tuesday off, never taken a week off from the show. There has always been new content, even whenever I'm on the road and it's a pre-recorded episode. It's not like, hey, smash together 2 interviews from shows in the past, like other hosts that I've worked for, things like that. It is always new content. So that is something that I pride myself on providing, and always being here live for my audience whenever we can be. So tonight we are very blessed and fortunate to have the good and amazing Earl Grey Anderson. Welcome to the show. How are you doing?
Hey, Chris. How are you doing? Good to see you.
Doing great, man. It's always awesome to see you. Every time that I go to a MUFON conference, I am always happy to see Earl standing around somewhere talking with people. You are an amazing ambassador for the cause. And even last year won Volunteer of the Year, correct?
Thank you. Yeah, that was last year, 2022. That was quite the honor. It was a surprise. I didn't know it was going to be happening, but there it was, and it was very, very cool. And my mentor Kathleen Martin was there, and so I know as soon as I got the award, I was sort of gobsmacked winning it, and we went up there and got it, and it's like, okay, don't fall off the stage, don't crash down the stairs, and I got back to my seat, and Kathleen was right there, and I got the photo and all that good stuff. So I love MUFON. It's my passion is working with those guys. I think that we are the best at what we do out there.
I firmly believe the same thing. I don't think that there has been a more cohesive group of investigators working toward the same cause, gathering data in the same way, same fashion. Yeah, for as long as you guys have been doing it. And that's what I tell people all the time. I belong to a lot of different paranormal communities, and quite a few that, honestly, Earl, I'll be straight with you. A lot of them are not friends or fans of MUFON. Mm-hmm. I always just bring to them the fact of, I don't know of anybody else that is more interested in the scientific endeavor of collection of evidence. And that's the main thing. I think, a lot of people get pretty upset, they're like, oh, they didn't accept my ring video. It's like, well, yeah, you didn't witness it.
Thank you.
It starts with a witnessing event. It starts with you and your eyes. And if you didn't witness it, then it doesn't matter what video you have of the event.
You need a witness. You can't interview a Ring camera. Yeah. I had one person send in a Ring camera video that it looked interesting, and then the next thing you know, there's this giant spider that's crawling like a
an actual very tiny spider.
Yes,
but crawling across the curved lens, it looks huge.
Yeah, exactly. Forced perspective, I guess, would be the correct term. Yeah.
Well, and that's just
you have to have a witness. It's about what people experience and what they see, and we don't accept surf camera videos. I get those sometimes. Mm-hmm. There's a surf cam at Ventura Beach and stuff, and now, if there was a video or a photo or something that came in, and there were also people that had reported it, that it had been eyes on, then certainly I would consider that a piece of evidence. Yes. And that would be the instance where that would be acceptable. But sure. We're very, very picky. Here's the thing. If I call everything a UFO, nobody's going to take me seriously there's a real UFO.
Let's see. Where is it? There it is. I was like, I know I've got an applause button somewhere. But I mean,
I need one of those.
That's just it. Earl, is that we've got to take things out of a box to begin with. That is the beautiful thing. I've heard a lot of people upset about the term UAP. I love the term UAP because it takes things out of the Kleenex bin. Everything has been thrown into a catch-all bin for years called paranormal, or UFO. And the problem with that is you are now not differentiating phenomena. You are not creating a striated atmosphere of investigation, sure. At that point, it just all goes into a catch-all bin of, well, that's a UFO. Yeah, it's in the air and it's unidentified, but if we can stick to the term anomaly at that point, that's quite literally the purview of science, is to investigate anomaly.
Well, originally, UAP was unidentified aerial phenomenon, and I like the new that now it's unidentified anomalous phenomena, and that I think is truer to what we're seeing. Yeah, everything isn't in the air. That's right. People have experiences in their homes. We had a recent case that I've got this one. Richard Benaziac is one of my wonderful field investigators locally, and he was a police detective for 30 years here. He's retired now from the police force. The way he'll describe it is, as a public servant for 30 years. And, the guy is just a gem and a diamond of a person. And he got this weird case where this woman had what I guess you would have to call the will-o'-the-wisp phenomenon, where these bright lights came flying into, like, through her, I think it was through the door or through the window, and flooded her living room. And Richard is a wonderful, wonderful interviewer. He's, police detective, just the facts, ma'am. But the guy's got heart, and he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's looking for, and he's really good at sussing out whether somebody is pulling one on you or not. That's what he did for all those years.
Yeah.
And this was it's not a UFO. It's not an ET that, somebody didn't wake up to find an ET in their room. It was, it wasn't an abduction. It was an unidentified anomalous phenomenon. And so in a case like that, it's a perfect acronym. Although I still love flying saucer, that's, goes back to 1947.
And there are definitely cases where that is the descriptor. Sure. Yeah. Because that is the shape of the object, things like that. But
it isn't always the shape, though.
It isn't always the shape.
It wasn't even the shape of the first one reported by Kenneth Arnold. They were crescent shaped.
Yeah, they were almost a double crescent meeting each other. Like somebody had played tiddlywinks with two sides of a coin.
Yeah.
So really, really interesting that that was the first shape ever reported, and that not really a predominant shape out there. Although
I've had somebody that got a nice photograph of one recently. I'm still in the middle of kind of investigating it. It came to me privately, and I've known the witness for many years, as good of a witness as you could absolutely hope for. And all the data on the photograph is perfect. Everything that you look for is there. Certainly not photoshopped. The EXIF data will show you, if somebody's put a photo through filtration or messed with it. Yeah. So apparently there's still, the crescent shaped objects out there. And
that's awesome.
I know. It's pretty neat.
Now let's kind of start at the beginning with you. For the audience that doesn't know you, Earl, how did you come to the world of UFO UAP investigation to begin with? Are you yourself an experiencer? Did you have an experience in your family? How did you come to this type of research to begin with?
Loaded question. You want my origin story. I may have already told it on the air.
Aside from your life on Krypton.
Yeah, no, not Kal-El or, well, it goes back to my mom, and my mom worked for Hughes Aircraft back in the 1950s. Kind of 53, 54 is when she was first working for him. When I was born in 1958, yep, boomer, guilty as charged.
That's
here.
All right.
I think that my mom knew that I had this weird obsession with outer space. It just seemed to be born in me. Well, she quit working for Hughes in 58. When I was 5 years old, we were living in Venice, California. And it was, I'm still, to this day, I don't know why my mom suddenly decided to tell me about this. I think that it's maybe that she had signed her, NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, and it was just bugging her because she saw that I already had this obsession with outer space and life in outer space. So we sat down to the breakfast table. I was going to go to school that day, I remember. It was just kind of a bright and sunny day in Venice, California. And my mom started talking to me like I was another adult. It was very weird. And so it stood out to me. She told me about how when she worked for Hughes, that they took her out to what she called it the Great American Desert. Now, I still don't know if this was Area 51, White Sands, or where. I sort of guess maybe White Sands because I've heard other stories that seem to back up my mom's that are similar. But she said that they took her out to the Great American Desert and that she had a little security detail. Well, I don't think she used those words. Security guys, I think she said. And they took her out to this shack that they, it was locked up and secured, and it didn't seem like it belonged there. There was nothing else out there. It was just nothing but this little, this concrete bunker. She described going into the bunker, and there was an elevator, and that she got into the elevator, and this thing, it didn't go up. It wasn't a high-rise building. It just kept going down. She thought it maybe would go down a couple floors or something, and she said that she started feeling scared because it kept going, deeper and deeper.
Oh, man.
You didn't know this story. Okay. So she said that the doors finally opened. It came to a stop, and she said that she felt butterflies in her stomach. Those were her very words.
Wow.
Vertigo. She didn't use that word. And she said the doors opened up and there was a little city under the desert. She said that a lot of, rocket scientists, later on, she would mention Wernher von Braun and people like that as though she knew him and other famous German rocket scientists. I know Wernher von Braun was stationed out in White Sands area, so that kind of makes sense to me. She said that they'd get around in golf carts, that these people would stay down there for long periods of time. So they had cafes down there. She said she had a guy that could do her hair for her, that it was a barber shop, but he could also perm her hair.
Wow.
So apparently my mom was down there long enough to have her hair permed.
Yeah.
And then she kind of, she talked a little bit more about it. And then she kind of framed the conversation by saying, well, and son, I know that you're so interested in space and intelligent life in space. And I'm going to tell you that UFOs are real and that we already know that there's intelligent life out there, that it's a known fact. Wow. And that I lived with. I lived with that information for my entire life. I still do. She didn't tell me a whole lot more, not really any details. I found out that indeed she was pregnant with me when she was still working there. So apparently I was down there too. I think she was trying to get a rise out of me, I was in my early 20s, and I was bugging her, I would try to get more information from her. And she said, well, you were down there too. I'll tell you that. Because you were in my tummy. I was pregnant with you.
Wow.
I know. So anyway, this is what put that initial that's really the flashpoint for me as far as my interest in the UFO phenomenon goes. Now, as long as my mom was alive, there was always a probability or the chance that she might talk a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And I'd bug her about things. I knew about Bob Lazar, and I asked her about him. And I remember she looked uncomfortable, and she said, "Bob Laser, that's not a name." And it's like a joke, answer. She had really interesting ways of getting around talking about it. My mom passed away in 1999. She had cancer multiple times. They were unrelated cancers. It wasn't metastases. It was as though she had been irradiated. And some of the research I've done, I've talked with Richard Sauter a little bit, who specializes in deep underground bases. He's written a few books on the subject. And he said that that's kind of a problem out there for a lot of the early guys and women that worked in our military DUMBs, a deep underground military base. It's what a DUMB, that's the acronym for it. A lot of them wound up suffering from cancers. I'm not sure if that's because they were running off a nuclear pile. I mean, I'm sure it was off the grid. They had to run it off of something. It was a little city down there, she said.
Yeah.
So maybe that they didn't really quite know how to protect people from that. It was a new technology, maybe, or I don't know. But apparently that's a thing. So when my mom passed away, that's when I started reading UFO books kind of incessantly, trying to learn a little bit more about the phenomenon myself. And the show Hangar 1 came on to the History Channel, which was put out in accordance with MUFON. It was all MUFON cases.
Yep.
And it really it made a big impression on me because I realized, these are just, the field investigators are just people like me. I don't need a doctorate to do this. I have a nursing license, not a doctorate. As a professional musician and a home healthcare nurse for 40 years of my life. So I joined MUFON, and I decided I'd become a field investigator. I took the test, studied the handbook that you get. And I kind of just, I was meant to do it, obviously.
Yeah.
Right now I'm presently working on my 1,002nd case for MUFON.
Wow.
So.
Wow. Congratulations. 1,000 cases. That is,
thank you.
That is massive, Earl. That is a massive amount of cases to have been a signator on, even been a part of in a cursory way.
I figure I can call myself a ufologist at this point. I think
so. Safely. I think you can say, and the one thing that I will tell everybody when it comes to MUFON, there's a lot of people who think that, MUFON is part of cover-up, things like that. You know how you can tell somebody's not a part of cover-up? They don't make money.
Yeah.
Nobody at MUFON gets paid. People.
We're a nonprofit. We do it for the love.
It is a nonprofit, and that's just it. It's one thing to win Volunteer of the Year when you have a few hundred volunteers or something like that across an organization, Earl. When you win Volunteer of the Year, and you're talking about a worldwide organization of volunteers, man, that's a lot of volunteers.
Yeah.
So your work stands out amazingly. And good Lord, I'm trying to remember his name, the Thiago.
Thiago's great.
From Brazil. I was like, you're the sole MUFON contact for Brazil. Like that.
Can you believe that?
I was like, one of the most populous places of sightings in the world, and you are the only MUFON investigator. Like, wow. That was mind-boggling for me.
I know.
To absorb. Now,
we need more field investigators out there, folks. Especially, in California, we're doing pretty good right now. Even like a year or two ago, we pretty much just had a core group of 5 or 6 field investigators. And we're the busiest state in the union as far as UFO reports go. It's not unusual for us to get 88, reports in 1 month.
Wow.
That's a lot of work for, a handful of people.
Yeah.
Right now I've got 15, 16, and I've got somebody else coming down the pike. So finally I've got a large enough, group of field investigators that were really well founded here. Yeah. But there's other states that,
Texas
where their cases
surprisingly does not have a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at contacting my state director to start some field investigator training myself.
Good for you.
It's one of those that I believe in the work that's happening, and anything that I can do to help further that cause and that work, I'm all about. And especially when it comes to disclosure, Earl. And you may have heard me mention I have a different view of disclosure than I think a lot of people do. My view of disclosure, big D disclosure, is exactly what's happening right now. Like we will see legal means come from big. We'll see it come through legal means more than we will like a big reveal of technology.
Yeah.
Which is what I think, unfortunately, a lot of people have set themselves up for the heartache of, like, waiting for the Mexican bodies to be verified, you know, or waiting for Congress to say, hey, look at this. Here's the bunker, you know, when really what's going to happen, at least in my mind, what's going to happen, which would still be groundbreaking, would be an end of the trail of money for buried programs, deep programs.
It's all in private industry. That's the biggest problem. You can't put a FOIA in it to find out about my mom. I know, I've tried. You know, I mean, I've had a couple guys from the DOD tell me that they've read my mom's file and that I can be proud of her and that she didn't lie to me. And but that's the problem. I think that these secrets are so deeply hidden.
They are.
And they figured out how to do this a long time ago. I mean, that's, you know, it wasn't the Air Force that was, you know, head of this underground lab. It was Hughes Aircraft, apparently. Yeah. Private companies. And well, and, you know, numerous times, and I haven't done it in a long time, but I used to every once in a while play the beginning of Eisenhower's retirement speech. And when you hear him, you know, it's a clip that you hear a lot, you know, like beware the industrial military complex, all that. But when you hear the parts before that, when you hear the preamble to that, you can truly hear this guy who was, I mean, he was a general. Yeah. You know, so like he was part of what was the constitutional army when the army still didn't technically exist until we needed them. Yeah. You know, and that's what he was saying was that be careful of this, folks, because you're not supposed to have an army all the time. You're not supposed to be always on the precipice of war and a police action to keep this machine moving, you know? Well, it's where all of our, you know, tax dollars go. I mean, Ben Rich of Lockheed, you know, Ben Rich of, you know, when he was Lockheed Skunk Works, he said that UFO is an acronym for what was it? Unfunded, it's right there. I'll think of it. But unfunded benefits or something, you know, unfunded opportunities. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Unfunded opportunities. Yeah. And that's, you know, I think there's so much that's locked up that, and I do think that there are people, of course, in the military that know about this stuff, but I think that it's real deep, and I think that it's hidden very, very, very deeply. So it's good. I mean, it's amazing how much has come out over the last few years. The whole Tic Tac episode, you know, the current, even the formation of a congressional group. Like Arrow, as obstinate as people have been in that group to bring things out and kind of foot draggy about it. Just the fact that it exists right now is a good step forward and in the right direction. Forward. And people like Tim Burchett and some of the, you know, people in government, this is the other thing that impresses me is it's one of the few bipartisan things that people will actually get along with each other on. Yeah. It might be the only thing that can bring us all together, you know? I mean, it's so... That's what Reagan said. Imagine how fast our differences would be put aside. Yeah. You know, and the thing is, once again, when it comes to disclosure, I think what's going to be happening is that we're going to see a money trail revealed that it ends up at a brick wall. And whoever's brick wall that is, that's who we're talking to.
But that's going to be the disclosure, is that, yes, the money trails that Grush has talked about are there. And that's what I've been trying to tell people, is it, much like they said in that last whistleblower hearing, if you're tuned in for Little Green Men today, you may want to change the channel. Because it's the fact of, I mean, my dad's a boomer. A lot of people of that generation are like, oh, Little Green Men, what are you talking about? And that's fine. The real question is, are you cool with a conspiracy to hide billions of dollars from the American public? Because that's what's being shown to have happened since 1939.
Yep. And that's untenable. That's not, it's just, I don't know of anybody that would think that would be okay.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. That's,
and if there are technologies,
if you owned a supermarket and you found out that your manager had been hiding money since 1939, would he still have the job?
Yeah.
Would you still let him have the job, is the question. And that I think is a big tater in and of itself, that opens the doors to a lot of other things. So I for one am happy that this is the first step of disclosure.
Yes.
Is following money to things like that. I think a lot of people get very, very disheartened when every time we have a hearing on such things that, they aren't traipsing a materials scientist from Bunker 28, onto the congressional floor, to talk about the secret stuff that's been squirreled away, things like that. And once again, that's all in the hands of private contractors.
Yeah.
And they're so that it can be obfuscated.
Well, my mom went on in her life to be a headhunter for all of those private contractors. I mean, she used to get signed. I mean, she was doing that till the last years of her life.
Wow.
She was doing it out of home. And I'd hear her on the phone with Lockheed and with, Northrop and all those groups. Consequently, she kind of became, her lips became even more sealed towards the end of her life, because she was working in that area again. But I think that she left a breadcrumb trail for me. I think that, I know other people like Dan Harari, who's the founder of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. His father was working for the military.
Yep.
In designing spy drones, more or less, with strange propulsion. He talked about his dad having created what looked like a flying garbage can that would take photos, and was it was how do you get a garbage can to fly? Yeah. It doesn't have wings. It's very strange. And Dan tells a story about when I think he was just 13 years old, right around there, where he and his dad had a sighting of a kind of a V-shaped craft just hanging there. No visible means of support, no type of propulsion that we are familiar with. And that his dad looked at it and turned around and winked at him, didn't have anything to say about it. And it was just like, okay, come on, son. Yeah. Like, it didn't surprise him. So Dan thinks, well, I wonder if, maybe that was one of the things that my dad had created, and somebody was buzzing him like a practical joke, or he still doesn't really quite understand.
Yeah.
But his mother is still alive, still with us. And she's told Dan recently that when his father first started working for the military industrial complex, they took him into like an underground basement somewhere and showed him something that he could never say what it was to anybody, that he came home, that he was pale as a ghost, that his nerves were all up, and he was never the same again after seeing whatever it was that they showed him. So I think that, it's that generation, they're kind of going, they're sadly leaving this world. my mom's generation and a lot of those early people that were working on these secret technologies that I believe were not from here.
Well,
but the children are here. That's the good news. What? The children and the grandchildren and the grandfather spoke to, it's like, and we're out there. And I think that this is going to help maybe pry out more from, this.
The more I've done this show, the more I've talked with experiencers, the more I have talked with people who have interviewed people with deathbed confessions, people who of your mother's generation worked in these industries for years and years, and why they held on for so long. Most of that is because they're of the generation where the country still gave a damn about us.
Yeah.
Like they're the generation that I typically talk about on this show, Earl, that if they were still out there voting, they would run people out of town on a rail.
Yeah, I agree. Well, they call them the greatest generation.
They were the generation that would quite literally go, you know what? How about we just not pay you this month?
Yeah.
You know? And part of the reason why people get paid from a federal coffer now instead of by their constituents, because, those were the people that held people accountable, and held feet to the fire when things came down to it. And many of them have started to realize toward the twilight of their years that that government is no longer. That the government that did have the best vested interest of the American people at heart, the ones that, much like Eisenhower, but before he left office, where he was like, be careful, man, because we had to give up a lot of things for this industry to happen to win a war. And if you don't take this back, these people are going to be in charge of a lot of things that you don't want them in charge of.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, those words are true now.
Yeah.
Because we let them sit and take root and literally dip beak into the coffer for so long. Now it's an entrenched part of a system and an enrooted part of a system that even politically is hard to unweave the web without destroying it.
When Barry Goldwater asked to see the Blue Room over at Wright-Patterson Base, right? He was told, you will never ask for that again. Curiosity is not need to know. But I think that, it's not just curiosity. I think that we really have the right, the need for just, normal human evolution, to know that we're not, the crown of creation, that there is more out there. And maybe we would, treat each other better if we knew that we were being observed, if that was, really truly known out there. It's an inconvenient truth for a lot of people because they want to think that we're the only guys in the playground and we're not.
Or that we're the best guys on the playground.
Yes, and maybe we're not that either. Yeah. I really hope for our sake, just as the human race, and I believe that we are one race. I don't really, I think there's the human race and we come in different shades, Yeah. But there's one human race. And I think that for us to get beyond, our shoot first, ask questions later mentality, that this is an integral bit of information that people really kind of require to get up to whatever this next level is. I don't think we can keep going on the way that we're going. I mean, we're just very, very lucky that we haven't had a nuclear exchange at this point.
God, yeah. And
but eventually some mad person is going to unleash those things, and we need a change. And I think that this is the one thing that probably can change us. Religion seems to just make us hate each other even more.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going to change us? In experiencer cases, I am in the the executive committee of MUFON's ERT, the Experiencer Resource Team.
Yeah.
It's a whole other story.
Like I tell people all the time, don't tell me that there isn't a woo side to MUFON.
To MUFON, there's a woo side.
There is a woo side.
There are probably those that probably
if you want
wish
to call
that we
it
didn't
woo, if that's what
but
you have to define it as, because it's not a nuts and bolts investigation. But there is a full-on effort in MUFON to take the experiences, especially the spiritual experiences, things like that people have afterward, and to get that information as well. And to get those cases, because
they're not here to do air shows, Christopher,
Yeah.
They're not here just to show off their cosmic hot rods.
Yeah.
And there's so much that we don't understand. And maybe, I don't know, maybe officialdom doesn't understand it either. And maybe that's one of the reasons why they're not coming forward, because they don't want to look stupid. They want to hold on to this narrative and control it. But honestly, I mean, I'm open to this being, interdimensional. In fact, I kind of lean that way. It makes more sense. Yeah.
Same. No,
yeah.
I very much lean toward the temporal interdimensional.
Yeah, me too. I mean, most smart ufologists wind up there. I mean, that's Dr. Hynek wound up there. Now his son, Paul Hynek, my dear friend, he's an interdimensionalist, Jacques Vallée. I mean, I can count them off for you.
Well, even Dr. Mike, I'm trying to remember. He was
Masters.
Yes, Mike Masters.
Us from the future guy. He's wonderful.
Amazing work on that side, because, when you look at it, it makes a lot more sense of us coming back to look at us to see what went wrong when and how we could fix it.
It might be all the above. I mean,
these are all, the great thing is that these are all hypotheses,
yes.
Earl. And without the hypotheses, we have nothing to poke and prod and experiment with. To get to a point of theory and theorem. So you have to be willing to hypothesize the extreme.
I agree. And
if you exclude that, then you've got an issue to begin with.
Yeah. It's already, I mean, some people have their minds made up what they want. And if it was, I love a quote from Jacques Vallée. He said, if I find out it's just astronauts from another planet, I'm going to be a little disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just astronauts.
Well, and, one of the things that I bring up regularly, we have Keith Sealand on pretty regularly, talking about his work is the humaniverse, and the idea of are we even ready to talk to ET, like as a humanity? Like, would they even be coming to us to talk right now? Or are we even enlightened enough to hit their radar for that conversation?
The anthill thing.
Yeah. And when you look at that, the idea of, and granted, I think that there is a big issue with anthropomorphization of alien species. We as humans have a tendency to, even when we see a gorilla pick up a rock at the zoo, to give intention to the gorilla and why he's picking up the rock. No. We can't assume the fact that he's going to use it as a tool, or that he's thinking about using it as a tool. He just picked up a rock. Like, just write down the fact. Gorilla picked up a rock, 2:22 p.m. Like, that's what my psychology professor used to tell me. Like, just write down the observation. Don't give it a reason.
That's the best thing. That's science right there.
That's just
you're not bringing your hopes and fears into it.
Yeah.
You're putting down what is seen, what is felt, what effects it has on you, and after doing the number of cases that I've investigated and closed, you start to see certain markers from case to case to case, certain repeating factors. I've noticed that people in the military, that a lot of the abductions and visitations that they experience are a little more aggressive than the ones that other people get. Oftentimes they're taken up. I've heard this one taken up into orbit and shown disastrous things happening to the planet. And then there's like a pause. us, where the entities are waiting to see, what the reaction by the experiencer is. I think that some people react angrily and violently and like it's this threat and they hate them. But I've noticed that I had one guy in the Navy who was abducted right through the deck of an aircraft carrier.
Oh, wow.
Taken up to low Earth orbit, shown the Pacific Rim volcanoes going off and destroying the world. And he started sobbing. And he was abducted by light creatures. They weren't the usual grays. They weren't the scary robotic guys that, the Pascagoula guys saw, yeah. Right? These were just sort of anthropomorphically shaped, but just they were made out of pure energy. And he said that he felt the greatest love emanating from them in that moment. They didn't take him to a craft. He was just in low Earth orbit. He could see everything with his eyes. He wasn't asleep. It was his 21st birthday. He was bored. He was in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on an aircraft carrier. He went up to his bunk, and this happened to him. It had this profound change on him, and he's never been able to really look at life the same again. And I think that, I think this interest in our warriors, I just see they're treated differently. And maybe that's the big question mark for whatever this intelligence is that's interacting with us, is how can these people write love sonnets and symphonies and beautiful, paint beautiful paintings and build cathedrals, and then they turn around and they, murder each other en masse. I think that maybe it's a question for them, and maybe they're trying to change us internally, psychologically. And the best people, I guess, the ones that you'd want to do that with are the people that are in the military, and the ones on the front line of it. And, that is an interesting take on things, Earl, because not too long ago it was the Remote Viewing Association conference this last year. I interviewed a remote viewer, pretty famous one. He's been on the show a couple times, and he was telling me that he was like, there is absolutely a reverse engineering program. Mm-hmm. He was like, the program exists because there is cooperation between our government and the Greys. He's like, specifically the smaller Greys, the ones that are like the hive mind. And are they biological robots? That's my question about the little guys. Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think they may churn them out. I mean, the Greys, that might actually be an interstellar race. Yeah. My guess is that they, if you're familiar with the idea of von Neumann, self-replicating machines, that they maybe millions of years ago started going across the universe from galaxy to galaxy, while exponentially creating new factory ships, so to speak. And if they find a planet that looks like it's going to be, that life is going to be growing there naturally, or maybe they can uplift it, that they park there somewhere in orbit. They crank out the aliens. It would kind of explain the robotic nature of the little Greys. It would explain why you don't see them in spacesuits and why they're not apparently not afraid of encountering bacterium and,
afraid of contact. The interesting thing to me was the fact that he was like, the reason this cooperation exists is because in order to get to the point of where they are as a society, where there is no individual, there is no ego, there's only id. And like you're saying, the idea of how can these people write all of these write this music? How can they do all of this? They can't do that because they have given up individuality to be a hive mind. So at whatever point their technology was when that stasis point happened, that's where they're at technologically.
Maybe they're learning things from us.
Exactly. They cannot invent new ways to use their technology because they don't have that creative spark anymore. So they're using us for their creative spark to find new ways to help them with their own technology to advance themselves.
When you're telepathic, you don't need to write a love sonnet. You don't have to write a symphony to express your feeling of Beethoven's Pastoral Symphony or something. It's already, as soon as you think those thoughts and those feelings, it's shared. And so art isn't really needed. Yeah. But yet that's like kind of what most of us live for. I know I live for music and art and beauty and creation.
See what I'm about over my left shoulder. But that's just it. Like, and it's hard for a lot of people to grasp that concept. The fact that you could be so technologically advanced, but not be able to create.
Yeah.
You know, and I can utterly see how, yes, if you're going for a hive mind, the perfect communication between everybody, the loss of individual, the gain of mass consciousness, you know, you would have to give some of that up.
I hope we don't lose that. You know, I think that
I don't think that we have to lose our humanity to grasp consciousness together. I think the one beautiful thing, Earl, is that science is regularly proving what esotericists have been talking about for millennia.
Yes.
You know, I mean,
yeah.
Even the idea, we talk about it pretty regularly on the show, just the idea of quantum entanglement.
Oh, yeah.
Being proven and winning the Nobel Peace Prize alone changes everything. It changes
spooky action
everything.
at a distance, you know. Yeah. Spooky.
Well,
it sounds like magic, right?
And quite literally, it's the basis of remote viewing. The idea that particles at a distance can influence another one. You know, that when a scientist goes home and he's thinking about his experiment, did I put 1 microgram too much of that solution onto the plate today? That he may actively be affecting the experiment in his lab.
Oh, yeah.
Just by thinking about
disturbing the universe. That's it's the double slit experiment.
Yeah.
You know, is it a particle or a wave? They had to come up with a bogus term, a wavicle, just to explain it. Yeah. Because the scientist
both
is what he's expecting. It actually changes the experiment.
Yeah.
We're more powerful than we know we are.
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
Intent and all those things.
Absolutely.
No. I mean, you have to remember science. I mean, it came from alchemy, which is, you know, it's paranormal. You know, I mean, trying to make gold out of lead, more or less. That's where the sciences came from.
We've done. It takes an incredible amount of power, but you can move that one ion.
Yeah,
and it happens. They did it in the lab in Japan, but it was incredibly expensive and way too worthless to keep doing.
I wonder if evading gravity's effects, if perhaps that's the same thing. And you know, you hear a lot about, they need to let this technology out to the public, but maybe it's such a difficult thing to attain and not easy. We're not. That they don't have anything to give us yet, 0 point energy or whatever it is that they're sitting
granted, on. You know, like, and one of the things that we have on the show here is our knowledge vault, and right here, declassified programs and documents. This is one of my favorite sections where we have things like the patent for the Lockheed Martin mini reactor. Because people have said for years, like, if you wanted to bend light or defy gravity, you'd need the power of a nuclear reactor, but you aren't going to get anything like that in a small package. Like, here's one that's made to fit inside of an F-16, man.
Crazy, huh?
Like, this is an actual patent put out February 15th, 2018. So since 2018, they have had... They have had reactors that are about the size of your car's engine.
Well, maybe we are creating those black triangles everybody seems to be seeing. I mean, I haven't seen one yet. I hope to. I know a lot of people that have seen them.
I hope to as well. But this is the thing, that unless you're like digging for this stuff on the daily, like insane people like me are prone to do, and just look this stuff up and look up patents and look up patents and look up patents, you may not be aware that, you know, people have been playing with Froning warp drives at NASA for a decade or more.
They're playing with it. Talk to Jack Sarfati and some of those guys.
Oh, you know? I am on an email list, a fly on the wall that is like one of the wildest email chains in the world, Earl. And he's on it. Jack's on it. All kinds of people are on it. One of my guests, Mike Turber. I'll never forget. This was back in the Dudes and Beer days. I had just had oral surgery, and I let him know that, like, hey man, like, just so you know, we're doing the show tonight, but Daddy's a little doped up. All right. So if I get a little wandery, you know, just kind of bring me back in. And what's he decide to do? Just like, oh, hey, by the way, I have somebody on the phone. Say hi to Jack Sarfati. I'm like, are you joking right now? Like, I'm as doped up as you could possibly be on a microphone, and you're just going to throw the physicist of physicists in my face. Oh. All right, here we go.
And Jack's got the weird story. He got the phone call from E.T., like a robotic voice.
Yeah.
And I have a friend now, one of my buddies that kind of pushed me. He helped push me to become a field investigator for MUFON, even though he's not one himself. But my friend Terry Arbogast, he had a similar phone call when he was a kid, and it said that it was from outer space. And Jack Sarfati, he had a dialogue with him back some years ago. And it's funny, Jacques Vallée's most recent Forbidden Science book came out, which are his journals. And he's mentioning Jack Sarfati, and there I found my buddy Terry Arbogast in there. I had to let him know right off. It's like, Terry, I have not been mentioned by Jacques Vallée, who I'm a fanboy. I love Vallée.
Same.
Magonia and all that.
I'm not going to lie. He's a dream
such
interview.
Good stuff. Oh God. So, but yeah, it's funny, I mean, I hope, I'm sure I'm eventually going to get to meet with Jock. Speaking of oral surgery, I had a double root canal done about 4 months ago. And I was, Paul Hynek knows that I really, really want to meet Jock. And, Jock's kind of getting up there, and he likes to stay in San Francisco now where he lives. Yeah. And, he'll go to Europe for a conference or for scientific meetings and stuff. But anyway, I get a phone call as I'm walking out, having had 2 molars removed. It's Paul Hynek saying, Earl, what are you doing? Going, hold on, I got cotton out of my mouth. Yeah. I go, I just had double root canal, dude. I don't feel like talking. I'm all doped up.
You go out and have drinks with me and Jacques Vallée?
Yeah, you got to drop everything. Jacques Vallée has a layover at Burbank Airport, and so we're going to have lunch. Come on, join us, and you can meet Jacques. And I'm like, oh my God,
so
Chris.
Literally spitting blood out of your mouth.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be right there. Hold on.
I had to turn it down. Oh. It was the most unfortunate, set of circumstances in the world, you know. I mean, I would have had him sign my book. So even though I got, like, they put out the Red Pill Junkie put out a 300 edition, just 300 copies of the Magonia book that's signed and numbered. And I did buy one of those. That's how much I love Vallée, I was going to have lunch with him, but I decided, no, I don't want to meet him and bleed on him and be doped up on Percocet. It's probably not a good idea.
That's not the Jacques Vallée story you want.
No.
That's not the one that you want him like, the first time I met Earl,
They'd say it in that French accent,
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, God. It'll happen. The stars will align again, I believe, because I so want to meet him.
You're in the right communities.
How's that for a segue from root canal surgery to Sarfati to valet and back again? Here we are.
Well, I mean, it just goes to show the utter humanity with which all of these things actively happen, Earl.
Synchronicity is my friend.
I think a lot of people misunderstand the research and the communities. I think a lot of people have the misconception that there are a lot of scientists working together on this stuff. And that's not the
problem.
Case.
They're not.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's all these little individual groups, and it's like the blind Buddhist monks trying to describe an elephant, and one guy's got the tail, and one guy's got the trunk, and one guy's got the leg, and they were all coming up with a different description of the same thing.
It's much like the inherent mistrust of NASA.
Yeah.
That people have, where it's like, I mean, when it comes to the point that you're actively threatening scientists via social media or
that's happening right
emailing
now.
Them. Oh yeah. Like when they have when they have to start their meeting with, "Hey guys, seriously?" And that's the first conversation is, it's real hard for us to get scientists on board when this is what you're doing to scientists that are coming on board. And saying that, in saying that NASA is holding secrets, NASA knows all these things. There may be some individuals at NASA that have seen some things, stuff like that.
Astronauts have seen stuff, and they've gone public with about it too. I think that it confuses them, and they don't have the whole story, and they're afraid to let out into public what they know, because all they have is the tail. They don't have the trunk. They don't have the feet. They don't have the body. They've got one little part of it. Yeah. And that's maybe going back to disclosure and what we were talking about. That why probably the most important thing, I know one of their great fears is that as soon as you go public with this, then you have to share the information with everybody, and that includes Russia, China, and Iran, and your enemies. Yeah. But I think that as long as this is being so secretly held and so individually dealt with, without any crosstalk and communication, and without people working together, it's not going to be like it's not going to be like like when they created the atom bomb. That was very coordinated. People were under the same roof. They were working towards the same objective, and that's why it worked. And I don't believe that's happening. And I think that maybe it's going to take disclosure and bringing this out into the open for that to actually finally happen, and for science to be able to tackle it. But is it all, here's the thing, and what bothers people. And now MUFON, it's all about the science, our creed. The scientific investigation, the scientific study of UFOs for the benefit of humanity. That's right. Okay, that's it. To use a scientific method, though, you have to be able to repeat an experiment, and we can't really do that with UFOs. Yeah, but with the data, okay, that's the greatest thing that I walk away from at case number 1002. Is that I have all these markers in common from case to case to case. Yeah. And I can look at black triangle cases. I can say, this instance, this one, they're all seen near aerospace, Plant 42, near the Dallas, Texas, Lockheed, Port Hueneme, Lockheed facility. You can see little patterns and you can glean something from it. And the same thing goes with even the stranger elements of the phenomenon in abduction cases. The stuff about the military being dealt with differently than other people. I never would have guessed that. I didn't know that. But that is a thing. I can tell you that. I can show you case after case after case where these same things happen over and over again. So there's a way to collect this information and to kind of get into it And the best that I can figure is our science just isn't to a level yet. We still consider it magic. MUFON, they want to be a scientific organization. But you have to remember, science started with alchemy. It was like a paranormal thing that actually paid off. And I think that the deeper that we go into this, there's things like telepathy and remote viewing and stuff that we consider paranormal that we're going to find out isn't para at all.
Exactly.
It's part of the normal. Yeah.
Exactly. That is exactly what I have been saying. I've been doing a lot of interviews on other shows, Earl, with my music. I do a lot of binaural beat music, things like that. I'm actively working on an album for experiencers right now.
Oh, I want to hear it.
To help soothe experiencers of different paranormal events. But the one thing I've been interviewed about regularly pretty recently is the concept of frequency and the paranormal. And specifically how experiencers of UFOs, close-up experiencers of UFOs and abductees, things like that, tend to be a magnet for other paranormal events.
That's true. That is true.
It's really, really interesting once you start digging into that and seeing that and noticing that. And that even goes into the now work of your mentor, Kathleen Martin, and the spiritual side of experience.
And there's a spiritual side to it.
There's a huge spiritual side to it.
I come from evangelical Christian family.
I'm a Roman Catholic seminarian at one point in my life, man.
There you go. I was taking pre-seminary classes. I was like the youth pastor of a non-denominational church when I was a teenager. Now, I threw out a lot of bathwater. I did, but I held on to the baby, and it wasn't difficult. It's love one another and love your neighbor as yourself and love God.
Interesting how the red words are the ones that you're really supposed to pay attention to, and you can really lose the rest.
Thank you. You're right. Exactly. It's not,
the rest is really judgmental and really harsh.
They'll know we are Christians by our what? Judgment? Hatred? No. They'll know we are Christians by our love.
That's it.
I hope that infuses the way that I do everything, and I think it does in my interaction with other experiencers. And I don't want to go and I know that we don't have all night, but I am an experiencer. I've had one face-to-face with our guys. It was inconvenient for me because I had just kind of become a MUFON field investigator, but I think maybe I was targeted for it. I think that perhaps because of my mom and her background, and I think that those guys knew what I was going to be doing now, and I had some bad concepts or some wrong concepts, and I think that I had kind of an aggressive encounter. It confused me. I mean, I was hoping I would meet Valiant Thor or the Tall Whites, and they'd, take me on a trip and show me the beauties and wonders of the universe. Instead, I got the little personality-less gray guys that, went straight for blood and energy and came into the room and left the room the same way. My wife, she thought that I'd had a mental breakdown, because when I could finally move again, I'm like shaking her and I'm, speaking incoherently. She's like, oh my God, you joined this crazy UFO group. Is this what I have to look forward to? But then my wife had a similar experience 2 nights later, and she was the one that was shaking me awake, and our room was still flooded with light. And, she was like, Earl, you need to tell your little friends they need to leave us alone. I didn't ask for this, blankety blank,
I do not consent to this system.
Yeah.
Whoever's listening, I do not consent.
When the phenomenon becomes personal, it changes something. It's a catalyst. And there's a spiritual element. When they were, doing their thing and not responding to me, I was treating them like they were demons. In Jesus' name, you have to leave. I'm one of God's. And they weren't going.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in situations where I felt, like evil presence, and that always worked. In Jesus' name, I rebuke you, you must leave. No, it did not work with them. They were not demons. They were not angels. They were beings. They were another intelligence. So that's when I went and sought out Kathleen. I wasn't, I didn't seek her out to join the ERT. Yeah. I sought her out for answers and to allay my fears. I didn't know if it would happen again. It didn't. Sure. I mean, I had a couple of UFO sightings afterwards, one very close up, and they were teachable moments. I believe that they were meant to teach me something, to show me something about the phenomenon, where I had a misconception about it. It wasn't about cosmic hot rods that, can travel at Mach 18, but there's something deeper there, and that it's not just about cosmic air shows. And I guess that's kind of my gist out there. I do MUFON by the book, the way that we're supposed to handle a case, and interviewing the witness and looking for what, I tried to debunk my own cases, see what satellites were out, see if there was a, SpaceX launch, where the
Get
Elon
rid
Musk's,
of all known quantitatives and leave the anomaly.
Yeah. You have to treat it that way. You have to do it the way that Hynek and Valet were doing it in their early days. Project Blue Book, they did that stuff right. Yeah. But there's a personal thing too now. I don't want to believe. I know. It's not like X-Files where I'm somebody that doesn't quite believe something. I know it's real. I've experienced it. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've experienced it. But I really want to understand it. I want to understand how it affects humanity and what they're trying to tell us. I think it's the most important thing in the world. Not even a question. It's the most important thing. And I think that our future lies in this, that what happens to humanity, whether we become Star Trek or Star Wars, the answer for that is what we do with this phenomena. And I think it's the most important thing. So I am all for disclosure. I don't know that it's going to be disclosure of what we think it is. I don't know if it's astronauts from other planets, if it's dimensional voyagers, if it's gods. I don't know. But I do know that it's the most important thing happening on planet Earth right now in 2023, and probably always will be. Yeah. And it's a very important time.
Always has been. We're just finally paying attention to it. And that's the big thing, Earl, is that we have the means. Yes. We have the brains, we have the technology to be able to travel among the stars, do all kinds of things. All we have to do is focus together on the end goal, and guaranteed we can make it happen.
I think Arthur Clarke, he expressed this really well. Somebody asked him in 2001, how come you were so wrong in your film 2001 with all the space technology and, living on the moon and everything else, going to Jupiter? And he said,
so wrong. You stopped doing stuff.
Yeah, he said everything that was in the film 2001: A Space Odyssey would be happening right now, except that money went into Vietnam.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and he also once said, the only thing more interesting and more exciting than war to humans is exploration, is space travel, exploration. Yeah. I mean, I believe that's our future.
Absolutely.
I hope and pray, and I work towards that goal personally. That's it's about the transformation of humanity into a space-faring species. And we're not there yet. We're not ready for prime time yet.
No.
We would go out there. It would be Star Wars.
We'd be barely ready for broadcast, much less ready for prime time. And that's coming from a producer's standpoint. The one thing I've said numerous times is I can only imagine. I don't know if you remember Flight of the Navigator. And but
Great movie.
It was, I believe it was Flight of the Navigator where they spoke in television.
Oh yeah, right.
And because that's what they picked up the whole way to Earth.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like,
I took my son to see that
movie. It may have been
movie.
back in me. But it's one of those that whole concept of we have been beaming out humanity to the stars.
They know
since
what
the beginning of radio.
About. Yeah, to the moon, Alice. You know, there's violence, you know, and just about everything.
I can only hope, Earl, that whoever they are, if you're out there, if you're listening, I hope that you are a more intended species than us. I hope that you are a more empathetic species than us. I hope that you do not prejudge species on what you see before you meet them. Because imagine being that species coming across space and all you're getting is all of our communication. Zero of the context of what the war is about. Zero of the context of what the entertainment is about or why it's there. You're just getting all of that. That would be a strange interpretation of what humanity is. And what
I don't
we
think this is
for.
their first rodeo, though.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
They probably come upon the likes of us before.
Oh, sure.
So, let's hope that they're successful in whatever they're doing. All I know is that it's coming up on 75 years since the Roswell crash, and humanity is still humanity's greatest threat. We've seen the enemy, and it is us. It's like the Pogo cartoon that's so famous.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming on tonight, Earl. I know I've interviewed you at shows, things like that, but having this casual conversation about such a deep topic tonight has been fantastic. And to know that people like you are out there helping start projects like the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. That is absolutely
what we're going for is truth in Hollywood,
And even last year's MUFON symposium theme was the media and UFOs. How has the media treated UFOs in the past? How has that changed? To see the media now using terms like UFO deniers.
Wow.
When at one point all of 5 years ago, you'd have been talking about, crazy grandma in Poughkeepsie who saw a UFO last night.
People know it's not just hillbillies that are seeing UFOs. On the contrary, it's our greatest pilots, it's scientists, it's thinkers, it's artists. It's your listenership. That's who's seeing them. Yeah, and it's the most important thing I think that's happening on our planet, and that's why I've kind of honed my life, fine-tuned everything that I do towards that objective, is getting that out there. Yeah, exactly. And I'm very proud of the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. Hopefully we'll get more thoughtful films and not so many Fear Fest type films. Yes. Yeah, precisely. Because once again, feeding that paradigm, I mean, can you imagine the day that they re-release all of the sci-fi movies with the disclaimer like they do at the beginning of the Disney movies? Where it's like, smoking. Yeah. There may be some old school rhetoric in here that may not be as culturally sensitive as it should have been. Yeah. It might get the Song of the South treatment or something. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Is the disclaimer screen on beforehand, like right after don't record or broadcast this program may contain some images of aliens that may be disparaging and are not culturally relevant. Yeah. Because it's changing and times are changing and it's a different day and age for it. And it's fantastic to see the literal cartoonish snowball rolling down the hill, just getting bigger and bigger as things go. It's just building steam, Earl. It is awesome. It's great to see the work of people like Steve Bassett finally getting the daylight that it needs, to see groups
like Hollywood Disclosure Alliance being built
Steve
by
is
you
the
guys.
man. Steve is the man. He was the original, as far as disclosure goes.
He was the first one to ever say, this is my going cause, and this is what, if they're going to allow lobbyists, this is what I'm lobbying for.
Truth embargo, that's his phrase.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And good
Love
on
Steve.
him for that, and keep going, Steve Bassett.
Oh, yes.
That was an amazing interview when he was on a few months ago. So I need to reach out to him to have him back on. But Earl, I want to thank you so much for the time tonight. I want to thank you for all the work that you do out there with MUFON California. It is one of the largest states out there with some of the largest number of sightings. So you definitely have your work cut out for you there, bud. Before we let you go, let everybody know where they can get a hold of you, where they can go to submit a report, where they can go to find out more about the Hollywood Disclosure Alliance. Sure.
Hollywood Disclosure, we just opened doors. So I'll give you the other pertinent emails and stuff first. If you'd like to know about what's going on, or if we'll start with the most important. If you've seen a UFO or you've had an encounter with a being, go to MUFON, MUFON.com, MUFON.com. There you go. On the front page there, you'll see two buttons, report a UFO or report an entity. You can click one or both. If both pertain to it, and somebody like myself or one of my fabulous field investigators will take you seriously and will investigate your case. If you are in Southern California and you'd like to go to our live MUFON meetings, and I get all the best speakers out there.
You do, man. You do. I am jealous.
The best. We have a wonderful group. I'm really proud of our group. It's the happiest group of UFO fans in the world, I think. And you can find out what's happening currently by going to SoCalMUFON.com, SoCalMUFON.com, and that'll take you right to our site. I write a blog there. I'm getting ready to put up a new one any day this week. Also, I'm on social media. I'm on LinkedIn as Earl Grey Anderson. I'm also on Facebook just as Earl Grey. You'll recognize me because I'm the guy that, has my MUFON credentials right up front. It's pretty obvious who I am when you go there. So, and there you go. That's our local site. So,
yeah, fantastically put together. I love it.
Thank you. That's the work of my chief investigator, Gino Marigolano, who's another musician.
Oh, wow.
Monster guitar player. He's better than I am, and that's saying something. He's really good. Rockabilly guy, but he plays like Jimi Hendrix.
Wow.
And he looks like young Elvis. So, wow. But he's married, ladies. Sorry.
Well, once again, Earl, thank you so much for the time. We got to get you on again sometime soon just to talk about cases and investigations, things like that.
Hollywood Disclosure. I want to give you the email for that.
Oh, please.
It's simply HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org, and we are a nonprofit. And if you are in the industry, if you are television, film producer, actor, or a ufologist that's interested in changing the misconceptions that are out there in the media and the way that ETs and this phenomena are portrayed fictionally, do join us. And we have an amazing storied group of just fabulous individuals. So HollywoodDisclosureAlliance.org.
Fantastic. I definitely want to talk with you guys about joining that and helping out any way I can.
You belong in there, Christopher.
I will definitely be talking with you about that off air, bud. Thank you so much once again for your time tonight, my friend. I greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Absolutely. We'll talk to you soon. I'll be sharing links, everything else. All this is going out live, and, well, it'll be posted within hours. So we'll talk to you soon, my friend.
All right. Take care.
Take care. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Man, awesome individual. Earl Grey is always out there killing it for California MUFON. Like you said, I follow them on Facebook. They have hands down some of the best speakers amongst all the MUFON chapters that I follow. They are hip deep in investigation all the time. So thank you so much, Earl, for your time. Thank you so much for MUFON, for all that you do. Stay tuned through these commercial breaks, everybody. When we come back, we will be welcoming our good friend Mike Turber from 5x5 News. Our conversation will be about AI. We've been talking to a few folks on the side about coming on to talk about AI. People like Gray Scott, futurists, people like Zoltan Isvan, that kind of stuff, who are in the world of transhumanism. However, when it comes to AI in the military, when it comes to AI and technology that's out on the shelves right now, I wanted to bring Mike Turber on to kind of get into some of the conversation of how AI is used. Are we really looking at an AI overlord situation anytime in the near future, or is that all sci-fi talk? Is that all nothing but hype? We will be getting into that and so much more with our good friend Mike Turber from 5x5 News right after this, folks. Well, hello, everybody, and thank you so much for sticking around through that commercial break. Thank you to all of our sponsors, especially True Hemp Science. True Hemp Science is your choice for amazing CBD out there, folks. Stop on by, check them out. Use the code CURIOUS7 to get your 7% off of your entire cart of $50 or more, as well as two edibles for free. Our guest in this segment is our good friend Mike Turber. Mike Turber is the head of 5x5 News, lead investigator over there. You may know him from numerous stories such as Tiger King, as well as the now infamous Route 51 shooting. We come to Mike for all kinds of things, intelligentsia and classified programs, declassified programs, things like that, to just kind of break them down. And the one that I wanted to talk about tonight specifically is AI. There have been a lot of misunderstandings out there, and even the recent announcement that I posted out of Financial Times. Airbus signs up Northrop Grumman in bid for Skynet military satellite contract. And yes, you heard that right, folks. Skynet is the name of the plan. That is the name of the program. I guess maybe there are people that just don't believe in the caveats of science fiction, Mike. I don't know. But it's one of those, like, there were all kinds of comments all over the Facebook group, like, oh, somebody get a hold of Miles Dyson right now, you know. But it's one of those, like, really, are you going to use the name of the death satellite that took over the world and destroyed humanity? That's really what you're going to use for your new AI-powered satellite. Is
we're going to be living in a Terminator episode here, it looks like.
Well, and like we were saying before the program started, even the idea of Airbus signing up Northrop Grumman and this being an across the pond effort, pretty incredible to see.
Yeah, when they both coordinated together, when Northrop Grumman and Airbus created a business called Cyberdyne, I'm like, wait a second. No, I'm just kidding. That would be the coup de grace right there.
You joke, but hold on, because I'll show you.
Did I touch on something that might be happening?
Oh, no. There is a Cyberdyne Systems out there. Let me bring it up.
I have to see if I'm going to call that company and ask for Sarah Connor.
Yeah, right.
I use that right now.
Cyberdyne.
Oh, man.
They are cybernetics, the foundation of business. Cybernetics is a new academic field that is fused across disciplinary fields. The core discipline are academic fields related to humans, robots, and information systems such as neuroscience. This is the Cyberdyne Systems website. So yeah, pretty wild.
My old alma mater, the old 3-letter place I used to work for.
Yeah.
They had this. They used the same name. I'm not sure. I guess the name got to be pretty popular, but is basically an analysis program that would run essentially on its own, and but this is going to be on a much bigger scale, I guess, in Northrop Grumman. I'm not sure if anyone's going to argue about who owns the name, but it should be pretty interesting if Cameron comes out and says something or somebody else does. We'll see what happens.
Well, and to get straight on the topic of AI and things like that, Mike, it is a long-reaching topic with large tendrils that reach into numerous areas. And
yes.
even right now, the idea of the Beatles streaming a new song that was created via AI. Now, granted, the first time that we really started talking about AI hardcore on this show was back in the days of Dudes and Beer. And it was when the Adobe AI software was coming out. It had not been released. I don't think it's ever been publicly released. If they have, I haven't seen it in my software packages from Adobe.
Yeah.
But it was the Adobe software that let you, with 20 minutes of anybody's voice, assemble anything you wanted. So
yeah, the first variation of that Adobe, I was on Adobe's beta team, and we received a variation or plugin is what it was.
Yep.
That was told to us that it was going to be AI based, and it would automatically remove backgrounds and automatically, do other things for the masking tool. And, that was pretty interesting. And we thought, at the time I scored it as a 8 out of 10. That it was a really cool thing to use, because removing the background of images is a very time consuming thing. And this would do it quite fast. I mean, but you had to teach it a little bit. Once you taught it a couple things, then it would learn and it would go on. So it was true machine learning, but it's nothing compared to what you and I are probably going to be touching on here in a minute.
Granted, it was world shaking and still is. Like, here's the article from Vice magazine. After 20 minutes of listening, new Adobe tool can make you say anything. And yes, this was 2016. This was 2016 that the video came out with them, with Jordan Peele up on stage talking about his dog and how much he loved his dog. And then they actively made Jordan Peele talk about making out with his dog before he left the house. Like they showed the screen live on in the audience, like what the guy was typing. And then Jordan Peele's voice said the words. And that was kind of the big reveal. And now we have, once again, that Beatles song that has been made using the same technology, where, yes, they have numerous hours of track 5 out of 8 tracks of Beatles stuff, where like track 5 is isolated vocals, that kind of stuff. So to, train an AI to sing like John Lennon, not incredibly hard. And it got to where this is one of the reasons, folks, that Hollywood is on strike right now, is because of AI and because of the fact of, it's what let James Earl Joyce or James Earl Jones sell the rights to his voice in perpetuity. So even after he's dead, you can go and hire James Earl Jones to voice over something for you, and his family will get royalties.
Mm-hmm. You just have Darth Vader doing whatever you want him to do.
Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
I mean, you got to look at it this way from the Screen Actors Guild and the way that they view themselves as an entity that, you know, it's a union. It protects the people that work for the union or work in the union, and you have a device now that can basically replace you. It's supposed to, and the way it was sold to them was to augment your abilities in acting. So if you want to have an actor do a really dangerous stunt, and you know, not everybody's Tom Cruise where they do their own stunts, then you can have an AI character do it and make it believable. But back in the day when they were talking about it, no one believed that AI could ever get to the point where, you know, at the time that it would be believable. And now it's integrated into several things that we've already seen, and we can't tell the difference. It is truly amazing, including Tom Cruise. If you look on YouTube for Tom Cruise, you probably will find the AI variation of Tom Cruise, and it's hard to tell the difference between what this guy has done with his ability to animate and the real Tom Cruise.
Well, and that's just it. It's gotten to where what is accessible to the average person is now at or better than Hollywood, depending on the person using it. You know?
Exactly. And remember when they first said that photographic evidence was going to be, you know, very highly scrutinized in court because so many people were bringing in images that were doctored and stuff like that.
Yep.
And of course, you know, now with AI I can't hardly tell the difference when somebody gives me a file and they say, hey, can you tell if this is a hoax or not? Is this UFO real? Is this alien real? Is this whatever real? Is this person really holding a knife or is he holding a phone?
Yeah.
You know, these kind of situations are easy to figure out, but they're incredibly hard to figure out when it's AI because the entire file is created from scratch to be what it is you want to see, and it's increasingly difficult. So I can see down the road that AI is going to have a lot of safety protocols put into place because AI can be very dangerous from as little as someone manipulating an image or a video all the way to you know, obviously AI taking over the world, you know, which is Elon Musk has a huge fear of that, which is probably well founded.
I don't know where these people are generating like nude AIs and horribly. Not that I want to. I have a Mid-Journey account. I play with AI for art. I have Chat GPT plugins for my websites that can help me create articles and stuff like that. Like, I'm not going to lie, folks, my intro, not any of my music or anything like that, but the part of my bio is AI written and then curated by a human being. And yes, like this has become a point of concern with major education, things like that, because, and now granted, the one thing I've said on this show and will continue to say, Mike, is that I hold out hope. I hold out hope that AI is prompt driven. It's not like it's going to randomly decide one day that humans, humans aren't necessary. That would have to be a part of programming, or evolution would have to be a part of programming to make that happen. I don't think that anything is randomly going to make an AI evolve.
Mm-hmm. Well, remember Asimov's rule of robotics?
Oh, absolutely.
You know, the three rules. Yeah. I foresee the three rules of robotics would be something similar to be plugged into AI as far as the programming is concerned. But here's the situation. Here's where it gets weird. AI. Think about AI dating. Yeah, we already have that. That's here now. And I have seen it, and I haven't experienced it myself, but I've seen it.
No different than a good chat room.
No, it gets rather risque, and your AI partner can do all kinds of crazy things. But when that goes into actual robotics, there will be situations, and you can see there's several videos about it that will explain that dating an AI robot will be an experience not only for you, but for the robot. The robot will actually want to experience the things that humans experience. So you have what appears to be, even though it's written into the program, what appears to be an emotional, you can get an emotional attachment to an object.
Oh, absolutely.
I had, there was a robot that was
scratch your dent a man's car.
Well, think about this. I had a robot that was sent to me about 4 years ago. It's called Jibo. And Jibo was a companion AI robot that would basically, just be your assistant. It's kind of like a Siri / or Google Assistant or what have you. But it was a physical object. It was a robot that was there, and it would dance and, whatever, and it would tell you jokes and all this kind of stuff. And it would randomly talk to you. And I had it for 3 weeks, and that was during the evaluation of the program. And again, it's Jibo. It's Jibo. And I still have the videos on it, and I will send you a couple of them. But I'll tell you this: when I had to send it back, I didn't want to. I literally had an attachment, and it was like really weird. And I thought, wow, I'm actually sad that I'm sending this thing back. And I had to delete everything on it. And I felt weird doing that. I felt like I was like getting rid of somebody. It's like I'm deleting an individual. As silly as that sounds, and I'm sure some of the people listening to this go, "Oh, Turber, what the hell's wrong with you?" But once you experience it, right? Exactly. And once you experience it, it's kind of like a weird learning process for yourself to learn that, wow, you can actually have an emotional attachment to something like that.
Absolutely. Especially if something has become, and is made into a point of conversation or is made into a point of decision making in your life. Yes, absolutely. No different than a dog affects your decision making. That robot can affect your decision making as well. Go ask any kid with a Tamagotchi. They probably spent part of math class making sure that thing got fed during the day.
Exactly. You don't want to get out of school and notice
find out your Tamagotchi died because you didn't feed it for 2 minutes.
Exactly, or you had a magnet on your keychain.
But that's just it. Is that there are these special points to AI where they are incredibly useful, such as culling through data. Once again, I can't wait until MUFON lets AI go on 50 years of cases.
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting to see what kind of response we get for that.
Well, and specifically, what kind of trends and things like that were spaced out over so long across the globe that we just didn't spot them.
Right.
Because we didn't see all the information at one time or in one way, the way that AI would be seeing it. And that's just it. As of right now, there is not a lot of freewheeling AI out there. Most AI, once again, is prompt driven. Like I use Topaz AI. I love my Topaz plugins. And their denoise and things like that literally save me a good 20-30 minutes per image. Per part. It's pretty wild what it does. And it's incredible to see that. Now, is it going to put, and this is just it, like even when you're talking about text to audio editing, things like that, automatic editors, that kind of stuff. I see all of these concerns in in Facebook groups for podcast editors and things like that. Like, oh my God, it's going to put us out of a job. I'm like, I don't think you are practicing real editing if that's the case. You know,
apparently not. Yeah, and some of these people,
like, you're gonna hear that hard chop. It's not going to fade things in, fade things out. It's not going to smooth things.
Right.
They sound as though they have been edited that way. Like I can
still have to tell it to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And even telling it to do it, even then, there is not the finesse of a human hand. Putting subtle fades in between words to make them blend together instead of chopping together.
Right. It'll be interesting that whenever you are able to load in an entire show and then just have it snap edit the whole show for you and to see what AI would come up with, and then to tell it periodically, okay, well, here I kind of like it when there's blank spaces to kind of pull that time together, you know, that kind of stuff. So, you know, you may have a guest or two that, you know, may hesitate too long or they may overtalk each other or, you know, all these different things that can be separated out in AI. That will be kind of cool. That would be cool. But I don't see that happening, like, you know, soon. But I can see it happening. You know, that would be a tool that would be really.
As far as things like Dugan Auto Mix, things like that are writing levels between inputs, that kind of stuff, absolutely, it's gonna change the world of post production. As we know it, and it already has changed the world of post production and pre production as we know it. The world of AI writing is here. From what I understand, Brightburn 2 is supposed to be the first script entirely written by AI, which the first Brightburn was incredibly fun. That was a great movie. I loved it. I don't know if you ever saw it, but that one was pretty wild.
With ChatGPT, I did have it write a few things for me. I was let's just say I was beyond impressed. I mean, it was just so good that I just went with it. There were some reviews that I needed to do on some Google reviews, and I just had it. I didn't have time to sit there and write like a long review, but I wanted to do it, and I said, you know what, do this in the perspective of a female. So I did it using an account I have that's a female-driven account, and I'm like, okay, do this review from the perspective of a female, with the understanding that females is concerned of security. And I just verbally said this out loud, and then I said, make it 500 words or what have you. Yeah. And then I said, and that was it. And I hit enter. Man, it was amazing.
Yeah,
it was the best review
within a couple of minutes, it'll give it to you. It's pretty phenomenal. And you know, I just had up on screen the article about, or the Wikipedia rather, about Tay, the chatbot that was released by Microsoft in 2016. Another one, once again, AI 2016. Really the year that a lot of this hit the airwaves for us. And Tay was a chatbot that existed on Twitter for a little while that shut down after 16 hours. After 16 hours, man, they shut it down because it became not necessarily self-aware.
Became racist.
But it became ragingly racist and bigoted.
Oh my.
And
it was terrible.
Oddly misogynistic for being a female.
Yeah. It was like a Charlie Sheen female.
But it was, like a tiger blood drinking Vatican assassin female. Straight up. And quite literally, like they shut down the experiment. They cut it off. Yeah. But Tay was an acronym for thinking about you. Now what's interesting, and this is what I tell everybody all the time. Once again, don't worry about it because it's prompt driven.
Yeah.
Even Tay was a prompt driven. Don't forget, even seeing something go by, just the input is prompt. All right. So prompt driven. That means that, whatever it sees is what it's going to filter and what it's going to figure out. So it's only going to be as intelligent as the average person reading the internet. Same way. Well, I just said this is just my logic. All right. And I'm not saying that it's not the case that it couldn't get a whole lot smarter. I'm just saying that as of right now, it's going to be as smart as the smartest person reading the internet.
Yeah, I mean, because that's where
it's pulling all of its information from it. It's not reasoning anything. It's pulling the information, algorithmically sorting it and going, okay, this is probably closest to what they're talking about.
Right.
And eventually, if you read that stuff, if you let them go a little bit longer, there'll be things that start popping up. Like I had AI before we had Robert Duncan on last time talking about AI. I had it do a thing about Dr. Robert Duncan, and it was hilarious because there were 2 or 3 things in there that it was like, well, I don't know what that is. It was like, I have no idea what that is because I never did that. But it just went through and made some stuff up eventually because I asked it for so many words, so it just filled in the blanks. This is how kids are getting caught turning in Chat GPT homework and things like that. Is that, hey, kid, you may want to go through and edit that.
Yeah.
You may want to go through and curate that content. You know?
Yeah, but it is amazing. It does give you a lot of things to work with, as a basis for something. And you go and slightly modify. But here's the kicker. There is question as to whether or not certain AI programs have become self-aware. And with that in mind, that becomes a horse of a different color. We're looking at a situation that if an entity becomes self-aware, there's very few animals on this planet that are truly self-aware. Elephants are a prime example that yes, they're self-aware. You can paint like a blue or yellow, dot on an elephant, and they will look at themselves and go, "Well, that doesn't really belong there," and they'll start trying to take it off. Believe it or not, that's one of the tests to determine if something's self-aware or not. And there's other animals that you think would pass it, but don't. Dogs, for example, they're not truly self-aware, which is kind of arguable. And a lot of people go, "Yes, they are. My dog knows he's a dog." Does he? Those kind of things. But as you look at AI, once it becomes self-aware, then that's when the mystery comes on. That's when the fears that Elon Musk has and a few others, and you start looking at some of the things like the Tay, experiment, and some of the Sophia, and I think I can't remember the name of the new one. That's the most human-like, but there's a lot of the factors that go into play as you sit there and you wonder: are these entities, once they are like robotic and once they become self-aware, what's going to happen when they feel that we might be a threat to them? And that's when you start getting some rather strange answers, and that's where a lot of these fears come from. A lot of people that have a fear are not really worried about Chat GPT turning on them and turning in a test result, like messing with you on a test and making it, giving you all the wrong answers, and you don't know the difference. But once a program becomes self-aware and it sees that somebody may be tampering with it to the point where they may want to turn it off, it may replicate and place itself somewhere else. You got some of these movies that portray these AI individual robots that have like maybe 300 to 500 bodies. I mean, different things that they can just transfer into instantly. A lot of these things get a little bit far-fetched, but some of them are rooted in something, in a primal fear that we all have. And we all have a fear of a race of aliens or something that may come in and take over. And that is exactly how AI has viewed itself when asked. If you ask AI, what do you relate more to, would you relate more to being a human or more to being an alien as far as how you would operate? And 9 times out of 10, they relate to what would be an alien. And then now you got to figure out, is there your friend or foe alien? You know what's going on here.
Well, and granted, I think a lot of that, of course, comes down to the fact of the computer isn't going to personify. You know, we tend to, and this is something I say on the show pretty regularly, we tend to want to personify and anthropomorphize things.
Right.
Whether it be an old civilization that is gone, whether it be a gorilla at the zoo that we see pick up a stick and we say, oh, he must be intending to do this with it. That is an anthropomorphization of what's happening, but is that really the motivation behind the gorilla? You know, and I think that we tend to do that with alien species quite regularly.
Right.
We tend to assume the fact that they would, of course, if they were able to travel amongst the stars and do all of that, they would be peaceful, because we would be. You know, if we got to that point, we would be one humanity. That doesn't necessarily mean it's the case for them. And like you're saying, with AI, we need to think about that because they aren't necessarily going to think like we are. You know?
True. And they definitely won't think like we do to a degree, even though the programming language and all the programming things that we put into it you would assume that they would mimic us, but at a certain point, because it's AI, the whole idea behind AI is that it learns. Yeah. It will eventually learn that maybe humans aren't necessarily something they want to be. They may want to be something entirely different.
Well, it's not just that. It's the fact that also, Mike, I think you would have to program emotion into that equation. Now you can program a learning path. You can program 100 different ways for a machine to learn things, to learn from its mistakes, to learn logically, but you can't program a computer to follow its instinct, to follow its gut feeling. You follow your gut feeling and come up with the best result. You know?
Have you tried that? Have you asked ChatGPT, what do you feel about something? And seeing what the responses are? It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I've plugged a few things like that in. Now, granted, I do a lot of Mid-Journey work, and there's quite a few things that it just doesn't handle. And that's just it. Like, understanding the fact that there are many of these that, despite how amazing they are, Mike, still can't read.
Right.
Like Mid-Journey and other image creating things can't read. You can't have it like write something for you, like, hey, write this as a street sign. It'll come up with gibberish because it doesn't know the context between the letters and the words and the meaning of the words and all that stuff. And even a lot of the writing doesn't necessarily have that context. It is following logical flow of what it's reading on the internet.
Right. And it depends on the algorithm.
Context clues.
Right. The algorithms that they write into the programming language that controls AI is going to mimic the individual's intent who wrote that program into it. So if you write something to lean more to, let's say you and I were going to create a dating agency that was going to rent out these robots that were AI controlled, right? Yeah. You and I would sit back. We would probably write into the programming language that everything needs to be, towards, giving some sort of accolades towards the individual that you're dating and this constant, uplifting, mood that you would have. So if you wouldn't even write in anything that would denote a negative impact upon the dating experience, because you never know when one might go rogue, and then you might have a whole series of them. So it really does depend on, just like you're saying earlier, if it's written into it, that's what you're going to get out. The old CISO, thing that, you know what that means. And that's going to be the goal of some people to do that. But the goal of others may be just the opposite. They may intend to have these things do something negative. And if they write that into the programming, then that would be it. So this is this constant counterbalance. And me and you right now, we're thinking, when we talk about AI, we're thinking about the here and the now as to what's going on. As far as some of the programs that you and I use, that use AI-based, plugins or what have you to assist on what we're doing. And that's essentially what the original premise was back in the 50s or 60s when they started writing the first machine learning languages. Those were very antiquated and somewhat simple, but it was truly machine learning. Eventually it would learn that the cheese is over here, or how to pass through a maze and things like this. That's simple stuff today. But now we're starting to get into the very deep aspect of it, because you have Neuralink, which is going to use a form of AI to allow humans to interface with a computer directly, and that's touching on some areas where the Elon Musk of the world, and in this particular case, definitely Elon Musk, have a well-founded fear on just how AI can be. The potential of AI being a positive influence on what we're doing in our day-to-day activities and stuff like that, it far exceeds what I would feel is going to be the negative impact that might happen by a couple of rogue situations that may happen. But a runaway rogue AI system or robots or whatever you want to call it could potentially create such havoc that we may have to rethink having AI as an assistant or whatever you want to call it, as far as an entity that we're going to share this planet with. That is where people start going, oh, wait a second, we're sharing our planet with these things, and now they become self-aware, they're self-sentient, they become conscious. I mean, what's going on here? At what point do those things actually occur? That's where we're blurring the lines right now. I mean, it's hard to think that far down the road, but in reality, it's really not that far down the road that we're going to be seeing this stuff. So we're talking about within 5 years, we'll start seeing quite a bit more than what we're seeing now. That'll impact our everyday lives. Everyone has Siri or Google Assistant, stuff like this, and all of those operate on a AI principle. But down the road, we're going to have cars that are driving themselves, and they have to make a decision as to who to hit. If a car is crashing and there's a object, a dog or a person or an elderly person, it has to decide who to hit. And guess who was going to hit? The elderly person.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when I first said that, I said, wait a second, we hit the dog. And it actually challenged that. I was like, okay.
Well,
that's weird.
A lot of this, especially when I've said for the longest time that let AI become sentient. Let the first robot become sentient, and then let them find out that we originally used them for nothing but, manual labor and sexual fantasy. That's how you end up with the Matrix. That's how you end up with us inside of little jars just harvesting electricity for them. Is when they find that out. That's all that we used them for. And even now, talking about this and the possibilities of AI and where AI is at right now. And the fact of, sure, if you put up a good AI article, page and a half, 2 pages, you could probably convince a good 70% of people on things, Mike. And what popped into my head immediately was Hosni Mubarak and the fact that social media gave that spark the tender.
Yeah.
You know, there was a spark of revolution in the air in Egypt. But Facebook gave it the tender to catch fire. And they never did find the dude that ran the page, all that kind of stuff. I say it regularly, like, don't forget, Facebook got their initial round of funding from In-Q-Tel, all kinds of things. But when you start looking at how social media can be plied against things like regimes, when you start looking at how just small technologies like that can be used to spark things in places.
Yeah. Well, think about this too. About 30% of your conversations that you have on YouTube or Facebook with people that you're not, they're not definitely friends, are with chatbots.
Yep.
And they actually send out a controlling message depending on what the person who programs it. And I think that should not be allowed at all. I mean, these chatbots to keep conversation going and to steer conversation in certain directions, it shouldn't be allowed, because any individual who has an agenda of whatever their agenda is, whether it be religious, spiritual, politics, whatever it is, doesn't make any difference, may skew that to go a certain direction, and may create a huge thing, just like, the things you're talking about and various things that I can think of that could possibly come up on the radar. And I remember when I think I had my first conversation with a chatbot, and I'm going, well, that was kind of a weird answer. And then I go back, and then it like self-deleted itself. It was gone. I was like, okay, that was weird. Yeah. And then I come to find out that's what I was talking with. I was talking with a chatbot. This is crazy. I wasted time arguing a certain subject with an entity that doesn't exist.
Yep.
And that's essentially what, and AI can replicate itself and do all these different things. And, and you would never really know the difference as it gets better and better. That's an actual fear that has some legs to stand on. But I think going forward, I'm for AI. I definitely want it to proceed.
Oh, sure.
I just think some safety protocols need to be written into it, much like the 3 robotic rules.
Yep.
Something along those lines. And then if that can hold true over time, that will be an interesting thing. But, I guess Elon Musk was really in fear. I mean, if anyone hasn't seen it, go take a look, just search Elon Musk and fear of AI or something like that. And,
I've been popping it up on screen. From EDI Weekly, the "I will destroy humans" says lifelike robot.
Yes, that one.
And that's just it. Like, there was another robot before that did the same thing, and it was the lifelike robot of
like Sophia.
Oh, no. My God, his name just left my head. The writer of The Matrix and the Scanner Darkly. He is the one of the fathers of science fiction. Oh my geez. It just left my head, and I can't believe that. But this this Richard K. Dick, or Philip K. Dick. Philip K. Dick. Yeah. There was a lifelike robot of Philip K. Dick a few years ago powered by AI. And when asked what it would do in the future, will it ever destroy humans? He's like, no, I won't destroy humans, but, I'd keep them as a pet. I'd keep them around for entertainment, things like that. Like, I wouldn't destroy them. It's like, wow. That's not creepy at all. And that's just it. Once again, we would think that these things would have more enlightened things to say, but once again, even when programmed with the best of our abilities, they go to that extent, Mike. It goes to the extreme extent forever and always, whether it's reading our conversations, and what it ultimately decides is that, well, out of reading all this, I guess I'm supposed to be a racist bigot. You know? And or after being fed all this information about humanity and everything else, I'm supposed to just end humanity. You know, that just seems like the most logical thing. And that's just it, is that until we get to a point that we can program in emotion, feeling, things like that.
You have artificial consciousness, which is parallel with artificial intelligence, and that you have to have one before the other. And the artificial intelligence that we're speaking about, at some point in time, may take on the characteristics or mimic what we would believe to be some form of consciousness, which is also machine consciousness or synthetic consciousness. And so when you look at that, you start to wonder, because I think it's happened in a series of video games or whatever. I can't remember the name of it. I think it was a Disney series of games or something, where the primary character or the program became what they felt was self-aware, and then it started doing some rather odd things, much like Tay did with Twitter and what have you. And you start to wonder, are they being skewed by the questions that are being asked? I mean, if you ask a series of questions, it tends to put a person into a mode to think a certain way. And I think that's the same thing. As artificial intelligence decides to learn from itself, it's also learning from the questions that are being asked. You can challenge this just by asking, say, ChatGPT a series of questions, but inside your questions, add some answers to it. And you'll see eventually the responses will come back with the answers that you put into it. So that's where you have to question some of the responses that you get when you ask ChatGPT, hey, what's the highest mountain in the world? And if someone kept saying Mount Everest, Mount Everest, Mount Everest, which is not true, Mount Everest is not the highest mountain in the world, or not the tallest mountain in the world. And so eventually, but people believe Mount Everest is. And that's factually inaccurate, but ChatGPT may go that route if everyone accepts the answer as being Everest. That's a really strange analogy to work with. But in reality, if you start thinking across the board, you can control the outcome of a program based on what you suggest the answers probably are. And that's how it'll come out. That's why if you look at some of these answers that come back when people ask ChatGPT a question, it's kind of skewed in a certain way. And that could be if you ask a question about yourself, say, and then you go in and you'll start looking at the answers, and then you start trying to correct ChatGPT. Eventually, those answers go into it, and it accepts them.
Absolutely.
And that becomes a problem.
Well, it becomes part of the data set. And,
that's true.
And then at that point, do you have a corrupted data set, and does it know how to sift through a corrupted data set, or know that it has a corrupted data set?
Yeah. Does it know fake news?
Well, no different than a scientist going through and just culling through data blind. If they don't know that the data set that they have is corrupted or intentionally corrupted, the experiment continues and marches forward.
That's correct. That's correct. And there's no real scientific method that can be programmed into AI. There has to be a way for AI to basically check its responses. But where is AI going to go to check its responses? It will assume AI
information in its data set.
Exactly, and then if that is corrupted, then it will continue to do the same issue, and that's a never-ending circle. It'll just continue on and on and on, and someone will have to come in and manually correct it at some point in time.
It's quite literally as though we have programmed a trauma victim, Michael.
Yeah.
Like if you've ever known a trauma victim, if you've never ever known somebody in your life that you're like, my God, why can't they just leave? You know, it's kind of the same cycle, and yeah, you know, the machine's going to keep spitting out the same thing until different input comes along, and until it realizes that the input that it had was bad to begin with. And that's just it, is how do you, when we ourselves have an issue with confirmation bias, how can we assure that we aren't programming in confirmation bias into the system? You know, and also at the same time making sure that there are checks and balances in place, like you're saying, because, yeah, come the point of arms, legs, other things. I've wanted to have Linda Moulton Howe on the show for a long time. She did quite a bit of research on killer robots, like robots in labs and things like that just went haywire and ended up killing their controllers. You know, there's been more than one case of it.
You know, it's odd about that story. You know, just so you know, I kind of researched that one a little bit, and I could not find anything on a deeper level for that. So I think some of that she may have, I don't know where she got it from, but wherever she got it from. But there's a lot of truth behind it. I can see the principle actually occurring, and that's where some fear may come into play, where there might be a situation that has already happened that is going to be swept under the rug because this technology is going to move forward, because the advances that they see, especially from a military standpoint, are Boston. The Boston Dynamics that does the robots.
Does Spot the dog.
Those things are amazing. Yeah, I got to see Spot the dog. I mean, you can't really interact with it, that much, unless it's programmed to interact with you. But it's pretty interesting to see how it responds to situations. They had it run through this, like it was a firefighter version, and it was to run into a home that was on fire and find anything that's alive. Basically that was its basic program.
Anything with a pulse.
Right. And it did it. And it just, on its own, when there was no one pointing it, go, no, let me check over here. It went in and within 2 minutes, I mean, it had thermal imaging, it did everything it needed to do, and boom, it was on an object, and it started, to remove it, to pull the object out. It was a doll that was basically, put in there, but it was interesting to see it handle the obstacle course they had in front of it to get it into the house, and then to go in and do that. And you're watching remotely, and so, wow, this is truly game changing here. And the same thing is, going to be applied. I think there's two ways to look at this, and you and I both are on the same page here, I believe, is that AI is, when it relates to an assistant or an add-on program, is completely different from, what's going to be down the road when it comes into actual physical assistance, where we're talking about robotic type assistance, or the ability for something to actually drive your car for you and to start making decisions as to, where you should go, or in a case of an accident, how to proceed, through that course. If it has to make decisions, it's going to make rather strange decisions. Who's at fault? Is the driver at fault? Is the AI at fault? If it makes the wrong decision. So it's going to be interesting because those are questions that have already been brought up. And
they're questions that have been hot. I mean, as you know, as my audience knows, I work in the world of corporate AV. Insurance is one of them that I worked locally, regularly for many, many years. And the questions about autonomous cars and drones and autonomous delivery drones and the liability and everything else was huge and massive. And even when you're talking about the liability of having robots on the street, patrolling streets, things like that, giving out tickets, writing tickets for vehicles, that kind of stuff. You have to question that. You have to wonder because much like giving a robot control of a weapon, you're giving robot control over whether or not a law has been violated and not really giving it that shade of gray. Once again, intuition that we have as humanity. It would be able to interpret black or white. Yes, most definitely. This thing is in the wrong place. It deserves a ticket. Would it have that intuition that a cop does or that a human does, or even the empathy of like, my God, that poor mother on the sidewalk whose kid is throwing up, whose car is parked here right now with the hazards on. Or would it just write the ticket? Very, very much the same way we have to worry about that human empathy when we're putting them out in the battlefield. And there has been a long fight going on with the UN about not allowing robotic force in the battlefield. Drones were always kind of allowed because they were human piloted.
And here's the factor that comes into play on the EGAD system. Our next generation fighter, it's going to have AI assisted or AI controlled drones that fly along with it. Those drones, if placed in a theater and turned into whatever mode they would turn on, say war mode or theater mode or whatever you want to call it, once that mode's turned on, then the pilot does not make the decision to fire the missile. It 100% will fire that missile on its own. If it feels a specific entity is a threat, whether it be a surface area missile, whether it be another aircraft or what have you, it will do a friend or foe. And if it finds out it's foe, it will fire. And that's as simple as that. It's that straight, that cut and dry. Rules of engagement will come into play to a degree. And as long as it follows those rules of engagement, it will fire the weapon without the approval or without the necessary switch flipping of the pilot. That's already been discussed, and that's something that they say in a scenario. I think you remember there was an AI F-16 that actually won the last battle.
Destroyed the human pilot it was up against, like eviscerated him.
And can you imagine being that pilot?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I think he won one dogfight out of like the 5 or 6 that he was put up to. It was not a pretty AI learned.
No, it wasn't. The AI learned extremely fast, and plus you have an aircraft that can now turn. I think they kept that F-16. They kept it within the parameters of what a human pilot would have to have as well. They didn't give it like HIMAT abilities. The F-16 HIMAT that can turn, well within the radius of 15 to 20 Gs or something that the plane can handle, but the pilot obviously couldn't. They had it within the normal parameters of a pilot, and it still it worked some butt. So that's a cool thing. I like seeing that. I would say that's something that should be welcomed. But the other scenario is that it's going to become a battle of who has the best AI. and who has the most aggressive AI in the field of battle. But then
go ahead.
No?
Oh no,
I'm saying that's going to branch out as we move forward into other industries, and some of the aspects that we learned from obviously the Department of Defense, some of those lower algorithms are going to leak out. Some of the DARPA algorithms have already leaked out into the financial districts and into banking institutions and into real estate, insurance, all these different things to weed through these policies and what have you to find certain things that that would benefit that company financially. Everyone listening to this has probably already seen a commercial where it states that our AI program will search through the stocks 6,000 times a minute or whatever it does to give you the best opportunity to make money. Well, at what point does that end? I mean, is 6 million times a minute going to be better than 6,000 times a minute? Or are we like overshooting ourselves? Or are we letting a program manipulate the stock market? Because that's exactly what's happening. If you've got a program that's analyzing the market and basically telling you what stocks to buy, then you also have a program that's manipulating the market, period.
Yeah.
That's how that works.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I don't know what the SEC is doing, but the SEC is going to have some sort of regulations in place that handle stockbrokers that use AI assisted programs to suggest stocks to people, because that can be easily manipulated as well. There's a lot coming down the road. I mean, this touches into so many different categories. I mean, we're talking about $1 trillion industry that's going to be in play within 5 to 10 years. This isn't long down the road. This is already happening now, and we're already seeing it in certain industries, and it's just going to branch out into our everyday lives. And at some point, it should be something that's second nature to us. Just like I don't know about you, but I use Google Assistant a lot, and then ChatGPT. I've used it within the last 6 months or so to a year.
Sure.
Pretty much the last 6 months more than anything. And I've been amazed at some of the things it can do. We'll see. We'll see.
Well, and
I just hope it all goes well.
Once again, AI, a lot of these things are nothing new, Mike. The AI has been integrated into our defense systems in aircraft, all kinds of things for years and years to faster identify aircraft as friend or foe identification on the fly, all kinds of things. What is new is, like you're saying, the fact that if a human being halfway through the mission decides, I'm not going to push the button, if that mission parameter is met, the button's being pushed, whether the human wants it or not. And that is exactly what they were talking about with the DARPA trials and everything else. Is AI intelligence will fly the aircraft in partnership with the pilot, who will monitor the AI and intervene if necessary. Which once again, quite literally the opposite. Should conscience become the issue? Should somewhere along the line of target is verified, intelligence is verified, target is acquired, target is painted, it's go time, and a pilot says, I'm not gonna, it's still happening.
Yeah, and there's going to be some provisions that'll be written into, the algorithms that control these devices, in the case of an aircraft that has a couple of drones that are flying with it, there's certain protocols. Rules of engagement is classic. Once those rules are met, I honestly think I'm okay with it making that decision and taking that decision away from the pilot. That way the pilot can concentrate on the core mission. Whatever he's doing, if he's going in to rescue someone, if you think about that for a moment, you're going in to rescue someone and you don't have to think about the SAMs, you don't have to think about other aircraft trying to shoot you down. You've got your drones to do that for you, and they can completely make that decision on whether or not to take out those targets for you, so you can concentrate on just say flying that helicopter in to land and pick up, that injured person. And these things make a lot of sense.
Sure.
It then it borderlines, the questions of sanity. What if we have an insane algorithm, something that makes these crazy decisions? That's where you have to weed through all of this. Because right now with rules of engagement, you can say that someone has committed war crimes if they do something wrong. What if AI does something wrong?
Well, what if you're able to spoof the system into the target identification system, or the FOF,
exactly.
The friend or foe identification system?
Yeah,
into thinking that friend is foe, and it fires.
That's right. Yeah, it's just like we have DRFM now, which is digital radio frequency modulation, which is essentially mimicking any aircraft at any speed, whatever you want. Made by Mercury Systems. If you look up Navy contract Mercury Systems and see what that programming can do, you're going to be amazed at that. And that's been around since for a long time as well. But the practical use of it in everyday aspect is kind of questionable. But when you start looking at how it will benefit, especially our country as it's concerned, but when you start putting into play a bunch of objects that don't actually exist and utilizing technology that can borderline or be better than and superior to the decision-making process of a human, then you got to wonder who's really fighting the war.
Yeah.
So it gets into some philosophical areas. It really does. I mean, this is something where
it gets into some deep areas of ethics really, really fast,
yeah.
man. And
yes, it does. Yes,
and
it does.
I think more than anything, that's what we have to focus on. Much like our pre-show conversation, Mike, about disclosure. Like I said numerous times on here, what I see coming as big D disclosure is legal disclosure. You're not going to see them parade an alien replication craft down the Macy's Day Parade route. You're not gonna see them pull out the magic crystals from Area 51 labs or anything like that. What you're gonna find out is that yes, there is a dead end steel door at the end of a trail of money that leads to a very deeply classified program.
Yeah,
as has been
decentralized
this money has been obfuscated for years, and that'll be the disclosure that we get. And the understandings of other things will come from that, but we have to be ready for that conversation to begin with, and we have to be ready for the conversation about like robots and AI and where that is going, not just in a transhumanist way, and the idea of let's not stymie humanity. I don't want to stymie humanity. Once again, I love my Mid-Journey.
You can turn me into a Borg anytime.
However, I don't think that we are Borg ready. It's not going to happen yet. It's not going to happen for a long, long, long time. And yes, we do have to think about ethical ramifications of things. We do have to think in a 2 to 3 generation aspect, especially with something like this, which is so entirely world shaking, I mean, that's the reason why this Hollywood strike is taking so long, is that this is truly game-changing technology and information on a level that's never been there before.
It is.
To where you could fool a lot of people into thinking some things really happened.
Yeah. Well, James Cameron, when he started dabbling into some of the AI that he wanted for Avatar and stuff like that, there is a person that has a good vision on what humans or aliens or avatars or whatever should be like in that realm.
Yeah.
And to put that on screen for us to watch and allowing that AI to actually do some of that for you. I mean, think about it. Just think about it. Like, I'm a director of photography for Discovery ID. So I go out, I have to figure out placement of cameras and lighting and this and that and all these different things. And as you do this, especially for like a true crime series or like what I did with the Joe Exotic series, and you think this out, and you go, wow, okay, we have a drone, we have a camera here or a camera there. Yeah. Man, if I could just have a program that could just do all of that for me, post or even just tell me where to do this stuff now, that would be great. But now we're talking about in Screen Actors Guild, actors being replaced, people being replaced, up to and including the director.
Yeah.
You may not need anything. A studio could say, you know, we don't need anybody.
Yeah.
We'll just let the program make all these movies, and we'll still make a bunch of money, and we don't have to pay any of you.
We don't need any of you.
That's right.
And
that's
the scary fact is that is all too close for a lot of things.
Yeah, and that won't be a good day. Yeah, it won't be a good day for anybody. I don't see that happening. I would hope that somebody would write something, and I understand the reason for that. I'm not a part of the walkout or anything, just so you know. But
yeah,
it does make you think. You know, are we living in a time when I can be replaced? You know, is it here now? I mean, or does someone really care about what I think? You know, because it'd be the same thing if you had one AI program. Do you rely on it to do all the decisions like a general AI, which is not here yet?
I tell people all the time in my industry, Mike, never forget, we trained actual monkeys to go to space and back.
Yeah.
I can train anybody to push a button at the right time.
Did you train him?
All you need is the right treat to train something to push something at the right time. So like we are all fully replaceable. Every one of us is replaceable via robot or AI. Every one of us.
Yeah.
The question is, at what part of the chain of command are you? You know, I've jokingly made the comment for years of, you know, whenever the regime starts, well, at least I work in media, you know. At least I'm guaranteed to have some kind of job with the state. So
you keep thinking that, buddy.
Welcome our robot overlords.
Oh, sure. Yeah, sure. I'll be standing on the street corner as they walk by and during their parade for themselves.
That's right.
That's what we do.
I'll hand one a beer. Say, when my son becomes a despot, I'll be the proudest father in the camps.
There you go.
You know, guaranteed. I'll be like, that's my boy. Move along, you. Boom. Like, but always great chatting with you, man. The topics that we get into are deep and thick, but there are things that we have to be willing to talk about. We have to be willing to have the conversation. We have to be willing to allow burgeoning technologies to burgeon, to bloom, to grow, and to give them fertile soil and thought space to do so.
Right.
But we've got to keep an ethical foot on the ground at the same time, you know,
absolutely,
and keep some kind of not necessarily regulation, but common sense going along with it. Otherwise, it just becomes a torrent that you cannot control. There's a reason why BitTorrents and things like that are called the torrent, because it's a fountain that you ain't going to stop.
Yeah. So, Elon Musk said it too. One of the things he said was in the case of AI, as much as he's for deregulation across the board and as far as anything he works in, he says this is the area that I think regulation is important.
Yeah.
And
to hear Elon say that, I was like, okay, well, yeah. Yeah, and I get it. You know, there might have to be some sort of oversight, but I don't want it to be specifically government. I think there needs to be philosophy involved. There's doctors involved. There needs to be regular street people. Everyone needs to have a say into how this plays forward. Because if you just put it in the hands of one entity, then it's going to be skewed probably the wrong way. So I see like a select committee of.
Well, and it's one also that is such a rapidly developing technology that if you don't, I'm not going to say regulate it, but if you don't curate it properly, it will be out of control rapidly in whichever direction you didn't prune things and direct it. You know?
Well, just like with anything, if you regulate something, there's going to be certain people that obviously won't follow the regulations.
Yeah.
You know, what are the repercussions for that? You know, it's like if you take away everyone's guns, then all the criminals have guns. So if you take away an ability of AI to do certain things, then people are going to see that as a potential threat on one side, but an opportunity, obviously, on the other side. So AI has been kind of compared to being like the Jedi of the universe, and it has the ability to convert to the dark side, and that is the scary aspect that a lot of people have for it. And is that fear unfounded or is it founded? I mean, who knows? I guess we'll see this play out over time.
Yeah,
but I get it. You know, I think it's definitely, like you just said, it's something that we need to nourish and we need to push forward and see where it goes.
I understand.
And then pull the plug.
I understand the excitement, and I fully understand the reticence at the same time.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Mike, thanks as always for the great conversation, my friend. Thanks as always for the love and support for the show. Let everybody know where they can go to follow 5x5 News, where they can go to keep up with the latest and watch your latest videos and stuff, my friend.
Yeah, probably the easiest things to do would be on YouTube. Just search 5x5 News. You'll find this in there. You'll be able to recognize the subject matter. So I think I'm the only 5x5 News in there, but if someone else, it should be me. And same thing over on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now. Just take a look for 5x5 News there and engage me in conversation and DM me if you have a specific question or something, you want to know something, or you heard something, you say, hey, I want to tap your brain on something. By all means, I'm easy to get a hold of. And I look forward to talking with people, and I do enjoy it. Appreciate you, Chris, and
thanks,
love being on your show and enjoy it all the time. I've always had, I enjoy being on your show. I enjoy talking to you off air.
Same.
You're a good guy, and you bring a lot to the table, and that's what makes it click, and I enjoy that.
Well, I appreciate that, man. Hold the line real quick while we close things up for the audience tonight. While you are online checking out all the amazing work of Mike Turber and 5x5 News, feel free to stop on by Curious Realm. CuriousRealm.com is where you can go to find all of the episodes. That's where you can go to watch us live every Tuesday night. You can also, at CuriousRealm.com/live, check out all of the episodes there in our player. We are now sitting at 11 and a half days of content. If you push play on that and let it continuously play, you will get 11 and a half days of paranormal content, folks. You can also visit CuriousRealm.com/videos. That's where you can find not only our videos, but also all of the videos from our guests here on Curious Realm. All of their YouTube channels are embedded right there at CuriousRealm.com/videos. So stop on by, subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. Thank you as always, everybody, for your time, for your attention, for your open hearts and open minds for these conversations. That is what it takes to move humanity forward. Take care of yourselves, take care of your families, take care of each other. And remember, stay curious. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of The Curious Realm. Stay tuned for more guests, forbidden topics, and hidden truths. Download the official Curious Realm app and view the Knowledge Vault on our website, curiousrealm.com. Follow us on social media by searching Curious Realm. Curious Realm is available on your favorite podcast services, as well as YouTube, Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV through the APR TV app, available on all app markets. Curious Realm is a proud member of the HC Universal Network family of podcasts. For more great content or to become a sponsor of Curious Realm or other podcasts, visit hcuniversalnetwork.com today. Thanks for listening. Stay curious. And remember, the other side is always watching.